Do you feel disconnected from your true self, or like something is missing in your life? Do you feel stuck in the same patterns? Do you lack self-worth and confidence and clarity in life? Then you need to reconnect with your authentic self and your soul. If the same problems persist, despite you trying various healing approaches or practices, if you've not experienced a lot of healing progress, if you feel stuck in life, if you feel stuck in your healing journey, if your self-worth, self-love, and self-trust are fragile, then you need to reconnect with your authentic self and your soul. Welcome to The Simple Source, your source for all things self-love, self-healing, personal growth, and spirituality. I'm your host, Linda Valines. I used to be chronically sick and unhappy. I spent years trying anything and everything to heal, but I never got better. It wasn't until my late husband was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer that I finally stopped searching for the answers outside of myself and turned within. I taught myself how to truly love and heal myself, how to finally be authentically healthy and happy, mind, body, and soul. I have over 10 years of personal and professional self-healing and teaching experience. I'm a trauma-informed, certified holistic health and wellness coach, certified Ayurveda counselor, and author. I healed myself of a lifetime of complex traumas and chronic conditions with joy and ease. Now I'm teaching you to do the same. So if you're ready to heal and love yourself more, mind, body, and soul, without all the struggle and stress, and with more joy and productivity, join me to liberate your highest, healthiest, and happiest self and learn how to thrive more simply. Let's get started with today's episode. Being disconnected from your authentic self and your soul is why so many people feel lost and frustrated and confused and defeated, not just in their healing journey, but in their lives. So that's what we're going to talk about in this episode, why that connection with our authentic selves and with our souls is so fundamental to a productive and enjoyable healing journey. When you have unresolved traumas, let's start there. Let's just get right to it. When you have unresolved traumas and you're operating from your old and your wounded versions of self, those identities don't belong to you. They belong to your parents. They belong to your traumas, essentially. And when you defend the limiting beliefs that don't serve your highest self, your health, and your happiness, then that means that you are disconnected from your highest truths and from your true power, which then means that you're showing up for yourself and you're showing up for your life as your wounded false self, the version of you that is ego and fear and trauma-based, the version of you that was molded by trauma, intergenerational trauma, by shame, by pain, by guilt, and by programming from your family, from your religion, from schooling, from society, and from culture that essentially diminish your true potential and then dims your light. So let's define what the false self is. My definition of the false self is your personality and your identity that was constructed from your shadow self, meaning the parts of you that you hide, that you reject, and that you deny, as well as your immature, fear-driven ego, and the unhealed subconscious conditioning that you developed from traumas, from emotional and psychological wounds, and other stressful experiences. Your false self is comprised of your social masks, your personas, your facades, your defense mechanisms, your trauma responses. It conceals low self-worth, your shame, you not feeling good enough, you not feeling worthy or lovable. The false self, the wounded self, is completely past conditioned. It's completely mind-centered. It thrives in the shadows and is ruled and guided by fear. It needs to be in control. It needs external validation in order to feel safe, in order to feel alive. It is self-judging, it's self-critical, it's self-diminishing. It's the version of you that was formed by unhealed and unpressed trauma and fear and shame and pain and limiting beliefs that were probably passed down from you or that you learned from stressful experiences that were never healed. So who's the authentic self? Your authentic self is your true self. It's your personality, your identity that's rooted in love for yourself and love for life and trust in yourself and trust in the universe and connected to your core values and your integrity and your inner wisdom and is the union of your heart and your soul. Courage, truth, genuine interpersonal and personal vulnerability and intimacy, compassion, generosity, genius, abundance, and unconditional love. Those are all signatures of your authentic self. Your authentic self lives in the present moment, is heart and soul centered as opposed to mind centered, thrives in the light, right? Wants to be seen, and is guided by love. Your authentic self can flow, can surrender, can let go. Doesn't need to be in control. Its value and its livelihood are not contingent on outcomes or external validation. Your authentic self knows that it's everything that it's seeking and that it's whole exactly as you are, and that your worth and lovability are constant and ingrained. Your authentic self is self-trusting, self-loving, and self-supporting. It's a version of you that lives in integrity and is connected to your highest truths and to your power because it's the human expression of your soul. So being disconnected from your authentic self and thus subsequently your soul, that can show up in a lot of ways in life. It can show up as you lacking a spark in life, lacking inspiration, being unmotivated. It can manifest as feeling like you're just going through the motions, where every day is just the same thing. It can manifest as having the same conflicts and the same issues in your life and also in relationships. It can manifest as feeling like you can't shake out of old patterns, like no matter what you do, you're just stuck. Also, if you have a lot of negative self-talk, a lot of self-doubt, if you lack self-love, if you lack self-trust, and if you're disconnected or afraid or apprehensive about your passions and your dreams, if you're disconnected from your values, when you're living out of integrity, that's a manifestation of being disconnected from your authentic self. It can show up as you not having clarity about what to do in your life or what your purpose is. If you're scared of being in your power, if you're scared of being seen, if you have difficulty making decisions, if you're stuck in victim consciousness where you feel helpless and you tend to blame and you feel disempowered, those are all manifestations of being disconnected from your authentic self and your soul. And the longer that you remain disconnected, the longer your life continues to be about surviving instead of thriving. Because the longer that you're imprisoned by fear and are addicted to struggle and stress and identify with struggle and stress, and the longer that you settle for less than you're worth and then you compromise for less than what you're worth, the longer your life is harder than it needs to be. And then that means that the joy and the wonder and the magic that are innately yours are limited and suppressed. And it's really sad when you're disconnected from your heart's truth and from your purpose and from your power. And that sadness leads to a life of dullness and apathy and monotony. And so, of course, you're not going to be optimally healthy or happy or thriving. And of course, healing is going to be unproductive and unenjoyable, and you're not going to experience a lot of healing progress because healing is your wounded self is an ineffective way to heal. It means you're still showing up. It means you're still showing up for your healing from your trauma narratives, from fear, from unintegrated shadow, from unprocessed emotions. It means you're showing up for your healing under false pretenses, we're operating from limiting beliefs and unprocessed fear. And so, of course, your healing journey is going to feel tumultuous. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be repetitive. So if you want to experience authentic health and happiness that lasts longer than 90 days, that isn't forced and isn't a struggle every day, then you have to show up for yourself and for your healing journey as your authentic self, not your wounded self. And that innately means that you have to reconnect with your soul, that you have to make a relationship with your soul a priority. And that's why I have a whole workshop about connecting with your authentic self and a whole phase of my program that's just dedicated to your soul, to your highest self, to your truths, to your magic, to your divinity. Because when you're disconnected from that, you're showing up as a diminished version of yourself. You're showing up again as that wounded version of you that's just going to continue leading you down the same frustrating, disappointing roads. A healing journey that's steered by your authentic self and soul is a vastly different and way more enjoyable journey than one that is steered by your wounded self, because the former is rooted in love and the other is rooted in fear. So how do you reconnect with your authentic self and soul? Well, you have to develop self-awareness, number one, then self-love and self-acceptance, self-trust. Those are all fundamental to reconnecting with your authentic self and soul. Because you have to learn, you have to be able to identify when your false or your wounded self is in charge, when your ego's running the show, and you have to learn how to give those parts of you love. It's not like condemning the wounded aspects of yourself is going to allow your authentic self to shine more freely. That's not how it works. That's just you continuing to buy into the narrative that there are parts of you that are unlovable. The wounded and false versions of yourself don't deserve any less love because they're wounded or they're rooted in fear. In fact, they need more love because of those aspects. They're wounded. So you wouldn't like kick someone when they're already down, unless you're a total asshole. Let's hope you're not. So you would help that person, hopefully, like get up, rise, brush the dirt off their butt, and, keep moving forward. You have to develop that self-love after you develop that self-awareness, because those parts of you, that's how they're going to heal. When you learn to give them love, you also stop perpetuating that inner conflict and that inner self-harm that is so unnecessary and so detrimental to a productive healing journey. And if you lack the self-trust, then you're going to be stuck in self-doubt, which means fear is going to continue to run your healing journey. And that means fear is still at the helm of your healing journey. And so you're going to continue to be stuck. Also, you have to identify your value system. Meaning, what are your values? What is most meaningful to you in this life? And also, what are your passions and what's your purpose? What do you feel called to achieve? And how do you want to serve? What lights you up? You have to connect with those things. You have to give life to your dreams. Your dreams are your soul telling you what you are meant to do and have and achieve in this life, what your full potential is. So give life to your dreams. Take your dreams seriously. Your dreams, you dream on purpose. And you have to learn to become present, meaning you have to live in the present moment instead of preoccupation or autopilot. Because anytime you are not conscious and you haven't healed your subconscious programming and your subconscious takes over, that's what happens when you are not conscious, then your subconscious takes over. Then that's your wounded self-programming if you haven't healed it. So you have to learn to become conscious in order to make more healing choices and to use that self-awareness to become mindful and self-loving and self-validating and self-soothing and self-regulating, etc. But if you're preoccupied, you're distracted, you're doing too much, you're living on autopilot, and you're not present and grounded in self, aware of self, you're not conscious. And if you're not conscious, again, your subconscious is running the show, which it does anyways, but if your wounded self is still the primary programming, then you're just going to continue to show up for your life in a wounded way. And also, you have to welcome joy. You have to welcome magic into your healing and into your life. If you have a belief that joy is only for the privileged, that joy is only for certain people, and that magic isn't real, then that's a really limiting existence. And I hope that you give yourself permission to feel more joy and experience more magic, because you are a being of joy. You are a being of light. And there's a bottomless well of joy within you when firstly you accept that joy is not a privilege, but that's your birthright. And so is magic. And when you welcome those things into your healing, into your life, that's when you start to experience more of them. But you have to give yourself permission. You have to invite those aspects into your healing and into your life if you want to experience them. You can't hold the belief that joy and magic are not for you, or it's just tomfoolery or whatever, and be upset that your healing journey in life lacked joy and magic. You know what I mean? Like, you have to welcome those things in order to experience them. Your highest truth is that you are a soul having a human experience and a body that's temporary, that is designed to house your soul in this life so that you can learn what your soul intended to learn in this life, and you can evolve on a soul level. That's your highest truth, one of your highest truths. And reconnecting to that aspect of yourself. This is one of the things that I realized before I achieved spontaneous remission, before my late husband passed, that completely changed my healing journey. And I was able to heal a lifetime of symptoms and conditions very quickly when I had been trying for years to no avail. One of the realizations that I had was that because I had been living with a lifetime of unresolved complex traumas, I was so disconnected from my soul. And that was an ishmu. That was a problem. And if I wanted to heal, I had to reconnect with that part of myself. And that was how I reconnected with my joy. We don't need anyone to give us permission to be joyful. We don't need anyone. We don't need circumstances to change. Because here's the thing, friend, we can hold two emotions at the same time. We're capable of that. We're multi-dimensional beings. We can be joyful and in grief. And that was why my grief journey was so transformative and magical and satisfying, is because I gave myself permission to grieve, to feel the despair and the sorrow and the heartbreak, but also the gratitude and the love and the joy. We have a tendency to limit our own existence needlessly. And then we not only limit ourselves, but we limit our lives. And so the wound itself is the version of self that is limited. It is a direct reflection of your unresolved traumas and emotions and stresses and experiences that caused you shame and pain and suffering and stress. And when you don't develop a relationship with that aspect of yourself, and then you remain disconnected from your authentic self, you're just going to be limited in your healing journey. You're going to be limited in your life because you're operating from literal limitation, because your wounded false self is completely rooted in fear. And when you're operating from fear, then your brain and your body are also operating in fear. And that means that your vitality is literally suppressed. Your healing capabilities are literally suppressed. That's just your physiology, biology, psychology, how your brain works. That's just how it all works. So that's the root of it. And this is what I teach in my program, and I emphasize so much and why it's so important to make that differentiation at the start of your healing journey, not when your year's end, because it's so unproductive to show up for your healing journey as your wounded self. You have to connect with that true part of you. You have to connect with your soul. You have to connect with your authenticity, and you have to learn how to identify how your wounded and false self shows up so that you can give them love, so that you can develop a healing relationship with them, because that's what you're healing, friend. That's essentially what the healing journey is you making friends with the wounded versions of yourself and healing them with love and compassion and consistency and safety, so that you create a stable environment for your brain and your body to heal. And you can't do that if you are disconnected from your truths and you just continue to show up for your healing journey in a dysregulated and fearful manner, because your wounded false self is running the show. And you're relating to life from trauma narratives and limiting beliefs, and your identities are defined by your hardships and your struggles and your suffering, then of course your healing journey and your efforts to be healthy and happy are going to not be fun. And healing should be fun. It can be fun. It should be fun. Sure, some of it is heavy and uncomfortable. I'm not saying healing is like a skip in the park every minute of every day, but ultimately at the end of the day, healing is joyful. And you can only get to that place and that appreciation and that embodied experience if you're connected to your authentic self and your soul. Your wounded self says you don't deserve joy. And that's just not true. It's just not true. Joy, again, is your birthright. You have a bottomless well of joy within you all the time. All the time. And you feeling joy does not negate your sadness. It doesn't negate your pain or your suffering. We're multi-dimensional beings. We're meant to feel all of it. So I hope that you're inspired to reconnect with that part of yourself that is connected to that joy and that magic, and that you are more aware of the parts of yourself that need that love and that compassion, i.e. the wounded false version of you, so that your authentic self can shine more freely and your healing journey can be more productive as it can be. Thank you so much for joining me today in The Simple Source. I hope this episode has inspired you, reminded you of your healing power, and reawakened you to who your true and highest self is. If the show has empowered and enlightened your self-love, growth, and healing journey, please share this episode, leave a positive review on Apple or Spotify, and subscribe to be reminded of new episodes. I am so grateful for your presence, and all of your comments and your support are seen and read and deeply appreciated. They really do help this show so much. Also, sign up for my newsletter, The Weekly Source, to get more healing tips, motivation stories, and to get to know me better. And if you haven't read my book, Unconditional, You Are Perfect As You Are, I invite you to get your copy today and start reading. And lastly, I would love to see you inside my Source membership, the only holistic and comprehensive step-by-step self-healing program that is proven to work. It's time to stop struggling to heal and time to learn how to thrive more simply and joyfully. All the links are in the show notes. Thanks again for joining me today, and I will see you next time.